Hi, this is John Pettigrew, and you're listening to Talking Through My Hat, a podcast that explores bookish businesses, the fantastic people who create them, and what those people have learned. I'm a hat wearer, a recovering editor, and the creator of Future Proofs, enabling editors and authors to work better online. To find out more, visit wearefutureproofs.com or follow me on Twitter at John_Pettigrew. Welcome to this week's Talking Through My Hat. Today I'm talking with Lorraine Shanley, co-founder and president of Market Partners International, who are consultants for the changing environment of publishing. She's worked at Barnes & Noble, Book of the Month Club and HarperCollins before co-founding MPI. And she also serves on the advisory board of New York University's publishing programme, and for 5 years chaired the Launch Kids Media Conference at Digital Book World. In her spare time, she writes articles on publishing, technology and social media, and regularly reviews audiobooks and books for several sites. So welcome to the podcast, Lorraine.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Let's dive straight in and talk about MPI. How do you describe your business to people who haven't come across you before?
I'm actually terrible at doing that, and I usually say you don't want to know. But if forced, I usually just call it a consulting and recruiting company. It's actually half our business is consulting and the other half is recruiting.
Okay.
And we use that, certainly when we're pitching clients on either side of the business, as a real benefit, because we understand the business, because we understand the people in it, and we know a lot of the people. And we're good at recruiting because we understand the underlying business.
Yeah.
So that's, that's the duality that we've lived with almost from the beginning.
Uh-huh. And why did you decide to leave your corporate job and co-found your own business?
For the same reason probably everybody does. Actually, I had an unfortunate parting long ago from one of my previous companies, and I thought I just can't possibly go to work for anybody again. And as a matter of fact, ironically, I was soon offered a job by DK, and this is when DK was still independent, and I had accepted it. And then my second partner, Connie Sayre, who had also come to similar decisions, came to me and said she was thinking of starting a company. And in a flash, I said, let's do it.
Okay.
She hadn't actually asked me if I wanted to start it with her, but I said, let's do it. And then our third partner, Robert Rieger, who very sadly died last year at a relatively young age, he came to us because he was also fed up with what he was doing. It was just one of those things we had to get out. We had to do something else. And so we started our business back in the day when, even before, certainly before cell phones, but really before anything in the way of social media, there was pretty much only email at that point. So
yeah, I mean, how did the three of you find each other? Were you friends already?
Actually, Robert had worked for me.
Okay.
And then when I left, we were at Book of the Month together. And when I left, he pretty much took over the company. So he was a very talented person who reached great heights at a very young age. Yeah. So, but clearly that wasn't enough for him. So, so we brought with us our own clients. I mean, the people. In fact, DK was our first client, which I always thought was wonderful.
You said no to them, and they
had said yes and then no. Yes,
yeah,
they were very loyal.
So how did the business take shape between the three of you? You presumably had some different ideas, and you ended up with a slightly unusual business, really, with these two sides going on. I mean, how did that come about?
Well, as with almost everything that people start, they think they're going to be one thing and then they turn into another. And basically, people would call us up, and I'll give the example of DK, would call us up and say, do you think you could find office space in Manhattan for us? And we were like, sure, we know how to find office space and furnish it. And then later, somebody from Macmillan came to us and said, we really need to find a salesperson. Do you think that you could help us? Have you ever done that before? And we were like, no, but sure, we can do it. And so literally it was just when people asked, assuming it was legal, we said yes.
Yeah.
And
It's, I think when you run your own business and you're reliant on customer work, it's really hard to say no to any offer of work, isn't it?
right, exactly.
Yeah.
So we've done some very unusual things over the years.
And what was kind of the original plan, as it were? What were the three of you kind of intending to do when you started up?
Well, Robert and I had a lot of direct response experience because we both worked in book clubs. We worked for
Uh-huh.
Time Inc. We worked with their continuity series on the Time Life book side.
Hmm.
So we had a lot of direct response, which was very useful because that was the time when traditional publishers were thinking they really should be trying to do something more direct.
Hmm.
Now, ironically, fast forward to 2000 and above to our present time. I mean, really, what we're looking at now with a lot of direct to consumer marketing is what was old fashioned direct mail,
Mm.
except sort of speeded up. So that background has been pretty helpful. And then Connie had a great deal of rights experience. So at the early days, we did a lot of rights and direct response work.
Okay. And you kind of alluded to it's a kind of quite a common experience, I guess, that as you say, the business goes in a different direction than the one you expected it to. And was that
Right.
something that you were wanting, or you were sort of enthusiastic about, or was it was just purely responsive, and then you woke up one day and found that something was different?
We ended up with, I mean, what happens, of course, you get introduced to somebody and then they say, we have just this one more project for you. And so over the time, I mean, it was funny when we started talking about coming on this podcast,
Hmm.
I was looking back into the mists of time to see the sort of clients that we had early on, because of course,
Mm.
had hundreds by now, so it's sort
Yeah.
of hard to remember. But at one point, we worked, for instance, for Diana Ross,
Okay.
and she wanted to start a children's book line. And so we helped put her together with a publisher and come up with the kinds of books she should do and the kinds of people she had to hire. And a lot of what we do is that sort of hypothetical. We've had people come and say, we want to start a cookbook line, or we want to start Christian book line,
Hmm.
or, we want to do something totally digital. And then we just sort of do the strategy for them.
So how to take an idea and turn it into something they
Yeah.
can actually turn into a business.
Yes. And those are really the most fun.
Yeah. Yes. Creation, I always find, is one of the best things.
Yes.
Sometimes implementation is not so fun.
In the late 90s, well, one of the big, I should mention, probably our biggest client in terms of retrospectively, we worked with Amazon in the
Right.
mid 90s. We worked with Jeff Bezos. I
Uh-huh.
mean, we actually introduced him, which I'm not sure that I should lay claim to, but we introduced him to booksellers. We took him
Right.
to his first book expo,
Uh-huh.
which was in ABA in probably 95, 96. And the booksellers, because, it was at that point a much more a closed community than it is
Mm.
now, were very suspicious of him, not because they thought, oh, it's going to be Amazon that's going to
Yeah.
ruin business, in 20 years, but more that he was an outsider, and what
Yeah.
right did he have coming to Book Expo amongst retail booksellers?
Yeah.
So that took us in a very different direction, and from there we did a lot more startups, a lot more digital stuff.
Okay. So you've worked, by the sound of it, for startups, for publishing companies, even for celebrities, which is kind of odd. I mean, how does that all fit together in your head to form a kind of a coherent business? What's the focus of it, really, the nub of it that keeps you thinking, actually, this is what we do, this is right for us?
Well, if you said to me, tell me about higher ed publishing,
Mm.
I would look probably blankly and slightly obliquely at you and say, I really can't help you very much there.
Yeah.
So where we focus totally is on trade publishing,
Hmm.
primarily on English language trade publishing. And we've been in the business for long enough that, we can lay claim to some knowledge of that. But when I run out of information or knowledge, I would go to somebody like Brian O'Leary or Mike Shatskin
Hmm.
and say, explain to me exactly how this supply chain works, or exactly, how
Yeah.
workflow works. But we know who to go to at this point.
Yeah.
I think that's really the advantage, and we have enough of a purview that it's useful, particularly in some of the larger companies
Hmm.
where there is so much narrow casting of job descriptions that
Yeah.
it's hard for them to understand even what some of their colleagues do. So
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah, that can be an interesting one, isn't it? It's quite often being an expert in something, as much as anything, means knowing who to go and ask the question of.
yes,
It doesn't
yeah,
mean knowing everything yourself, but
right,
it's knowing where
right.
to go. That's kind of a
And
key
and
skill.
actually, a lot of our business has starting with Jeff in the mid '90s
Mm.
has been people coming to us and saying, who do I talk to about this? We worked for
Yeah.
the first ebook company, Rocket Ebook.
Hmm.
And interestingly, Martin Eberhard, who ran it, who was a very idiosyncratic fellow, went on, he basically got booted out of Rocketbook and went off to run Tesla. He was the
Okay.
first CEO of Tesla. So I think we did him a favor. Not that I can say I booted him, but
Yeah, and I mean, how has the world on the kind of, so you can see the consultancy side coming together? How does the world of recruitment kind of changed over the years? You mentioned, getting people to broaden their job descriptions and the way they look at things, but has that become more part of it? Are you almost coaching people in how to recruit better?
no, I wouldn't say that's true. I
Okay.
think we do a lot of outreach. Well, that's the wrong way around. We are reached out to
Uh-huh.
by a lot of people who either want to change their jobs or the focus of their jobs, or they're about to be unemployed, or they have been
Okay.
fired. And a lot of what we do is tell them, your resume may say that you're an editor and have been an editor for 20 years, but look at it this way. Or,
Yeah.
you're in publicity for a publisher, but you could easily take that and become a corporate, publicity person, public relations at a different kind of company.
Yeah.
So I think it's really helping the employees rather than the
Okay.
employers. The
So,
employers often would. I'll tell you one exception is they often know what they want, even if they don't know that they know it. So we've
okay.
done a lot of work with museum publishers, and almost to a person, when you say to them, who are you looking for? They
Mm.
think they're looking for somebody who has worked at Simon & Schuster or Penguin Random House, but they're actually looking for somebody who has the skills that they need in their museum.
Yeah.
Um, so a lot of times people think that they want to be something other than who they are, and you have to show them what that looks like, and
Yeah.
then they eventually come back to understanding that they need a skill set.
So that's that kind of broadening of horizons, kind of on both sides in a sense that you were
Yeah,
talking about.
yeah.
Yeah.
But the recruiting stuff is really um, a fascinating um, side of our business,
Hmm.
and it's I mean it's very nice to balance it with the consulting because the consulting you can do on your own time, whereas recruiting you have to work around candidates and clients
Yeah.
and their time frames. But getting the right person into the right job and clarifying everybody's expectations is a really interesting sort of puzzle to work out. And you have to work it out over time. And obviously, when you work for one client, we did 5 searches for one client in the period of 6 months.
Hmm.
You know what you're working with.
Yeah.
You know the culture of the company well enough. But each time you have to sort of rediscover it and understand what the dynamics are.
Yeah, it's always the dilemma with when you're recruiting and when you're trying to get a new job is that less, there's such a small proportion of what you need to know is in the job ad or in the brief that you're given.
Right.
And how do you go about kind of digging into that for either side to help?
Well, I mean, that's one of the advantages of having been in the business. I mean, occasionally somebody comes to me from advertising and says, "Would you be interested in recruiting for this?" And we've certainly done stuff in magazine business, although there's not much of that around anymore. But we're very careful not to take on a search where we won't be able to get to the people surrounding the potential candidates. Because, if somebody will give you references and you can check those out and they say, oh, the best person in the world. But if you don't know other people you can go to um, who can get, who can sort of flesh out that individual, you're going to end up by simply going according, to the gospel according to the candidate, which is not usually the only way to go.
Yeah. So if we switch it around a little bit and kind of, okay, that's what you've been doing, but how do you actually go about the business side? How do you, when you kind of set up your own business, it's a bit different to running somebody else's business. How do you go about learning to do that side of things yourself?
It's funny, yes, I do read business books. I don't read them for my own business, which is sort of ironic.
Okay.
And you had mentioned that you might ask that question beforehand, and I thought about it, and I thought, gosh, that was silly of me. Why didn't I start, all this years ago, reading up on this? I think one of the interesting things we're in the process of renovating our offices,
Hmm.
not entirely of our own free will. Our building is requiring it. So we had to throw out a lot of things and
Hmm.
move stuff around. One of the things that it reminded me of, and we're seeing now, is of course when you have the same business for a long time, and I don't know how long have you had your own business.
It's about 5.5 years now.
So right about in another year or two, you have to look around, bring somebody in, and say, what should I be doing that I'm not doing now, or
Okay.
what shouldn't I be doing?
Yeah.
Took us forever to get rid of a postage meter because of course we weren't sending anything and
Yeah.
we were paying an annual subscription for that. So there are a lot of things that you don't we have all these paper files which of course we never refer to.
Yeah.
So there's so many things that where you can streamline your own business, but you get set in your ways
Yeah.
and you have to kind of wake yourself up or have somebody else come from the outside and say, take a look around you and get with the program. So,
Yeah. I guess it's almost ironic, really, for a consultant, see business,
right,
to has to get people in to tell them. But you always develop this self blindness, don't you? That
right,
you do things
right,
because you do them.
right. So that's, it's always good to either renovate or move every few years just to kind of keep you up to speed. But actually, one of the books that I did read um, several years ago, which really struck me, and then I heard him speak, and he's a very good speaker, is The Lean
Hmm.
Startup.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
Eric
and
Rees.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I thought that was a very good book for anybody going into business of any sort to read, just to kind of give you a sense of, bearing, um, keeping the essentials and not getting carried away with the rest of it.
Yeah, it's kind of bringing some sense of discipline to what can be a bit
Yeah,
of a anarchic procedure in some cases. I mean, to me, that kind of appealed because I'm a scientist by training, and it was kind of bringing the scientific theory of hypothesis and test
right.
into the business space, which kind of made sense. It's been really interesting watching over the last few years some of the way that whole lean startup movement has proliferated and mutated,
Yes.
and things have grown out of it as well. It's an interesting one. Yeah. So I mean, when you think about when you think about your own business, where you've been, and all the changes you've made, and that kind of stuff you've talked about, when you think about the next 5 years, I mean, do you make plans like that? Are you able to think, oh, in 5 years we want to be here, and what do you do to make sure you're kind of still around as a business then?
Well, that's a really good question. We've been doing a little bit more of it recently.
Hmm.
Uh, and I think it's something that, yes, everybody should do. One of the things that we look at is getting into the self-publishing space. Should we be offering services to individuals as opposed to companies? And we've been reluctant to do that. And actually, one of the interesting things about the panel that I went to yesterday, which I had mentioned to you before we started our official podcast, was that the panel yesterday was focused on corporate clients, and so they were dealing with commercial entities that wanted to have some sort of history of their company,
Yeah.
either large privately owned company or a corporation. And the panelists were all packagers who basically were doing this work for them.
Yeah.
One of the interesting corporate clients was Highlights for Children, which is a well-known book publisher and magazine publisher.
Hmm.
They specifically wanted a book that they could give to their own employees, and including freelancers. I mean, think about how many freelancers come into a company and they have no idea
Yeah.
what the culture is. But Highlights has a very definite culture, and they wanted anybody who works with them in any capacity to understand that.
Yeah.
So listening to these packagers talk about these corporate clients, and they were also doing books for individuals who wanted, a legacy. It did make me think more, as we have over the last year or so, about ways in which we might work with smaller entities, non-publishing entities,
Hmm.
who want some sort of book um, or book series. We work with a lot of nonprofits, and the nonprofits, their emphasis is not publishing, but it's often very important to them. So that they derive income from that. They also have a certain they feel that gives them a certain stature to have those books.
Yeah. We talked a little bit before the podcast started about this thing that in a sense, what we think of as publishing is only a part of the global thing that creates books and
Yes,
magazines and all sorts of stuff. It's we tend to be a little bit insular in the way that we define ourselves.
right. And by the same token, getting back to educational publishing or professional publishing,
Hmm.
um, we tend to think that the kind of publishing we do, so I do trade publishing,
Hmm.
and you tend to think of that as being publishing,
Mm.
sometimes to the exclusion of, in the
Yeah.
case of me, to the exclusion of huge, swatches of the publishing industry, which are, extremely profitable
Mm.
and significant.
Yeah.
And that would be education, that would be professional, scientific, etc.
Yeah.
I do dabble a little bit in what we call L-High, elementary high school education, so it's pre-university level.
Yeah. K-12 type of
Yes,
stuff. Yeah.
only because I do a certain amount of children's, and that's very closely parallel.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what is it that you personally find hardest about running the actual business? I mean, obviously, there's the doing of the consulting and there's the doing of the recruiting for people, but actually, the keeping the business together and on track.
Well, I think it's the strategic planning. It's, you get caught up in the day-to-day issues. Um, in, this week it's, where is my office? Uh, I think it's really the strategy. What are what are the areas that we should be going into? How should we aggressively promote ourselves? Um, who should we be in contact with? What are the important conferences we should be going to
Yeah.
meet the right people? I tend to do it when I'm interested in something. Almost everything I do is because I'm curious. I went to Future Book in December,
Uh huh.
London,
Yeah.
which is booksellers. And I went because I'd gone the year before, and I went because people kept on saying it's a terrific conference. You must go. And
Mm.
I totally agreed.
Yeah.
But that got me much more into audiobooks and voice first technology. And so now that's an area that I've gained a little bit of traction in.
Yeah. And that curiosity side is so important sometimes, isn't it, in keeping your interest going over the long term, because you've got to keep, there's got to be something new. I always
Yes.
find that, if you're doing the same thing over and over again, you might as well be working for a corporate almost.
Right, exactly. And publishing offers just a ridiculous range of new things.
Yeah.
So to take from Michael Lewis. So on Tuesday night, there was a panel on books into film.
Hmm.
And if there hadn't been a snowstorm, that's what I planned to go to. So I try to keep as many of those tentacles out there just to know what's happening.
Yeah. If you look back on the years running your own business, what have you learned about yourself from that exercise? Because as you say, one has to try lots of new things and keep your eyes open and stuff, but you end up stretching yourself. So what have you learned about yourself in that time?
I really don't like workflow.
Oh,
I think I found that I am motivated if I have a goal. So I am curious about many things, but I'm that much better. It's one of the reasons I review. If you give me a deadline, I'll meet it every time. But without the deadline, I procrastinate like everybody else.
yeah.
And that is certainly true in business. When you're running your own business, you have to always have very, very specific goals
Yeah.
that you have to give yourself, because nobody else is going to do that. And the client will ultimately give you the goal, but it may be too late by then. So
Yes.
you have to be one step ahead of your client at all times.
That's, I think, a good motto for for everyone in any business.
Right.
And what is it that keeps you coming back to it every day? You've been doing it for quite a while now, this single business.
Well, it's not a single business. So we do a lot of work, for instance, with distributors. And we do client surveys for distributors, as well as working for individual publishers. That's a whole different business from, headhunting
Yeah.
or an editorial director. That's a whole different business from trying to get a nonprofit to understand that, they may have a mission, but it doesn't mean that they shouldn't make money off their books. And so I think it's just the variety is one of the great appeals, always having something new on the horizon. We work, as I said, we do often a publisher will come to us and say, we want to move into a new direction. Can you give us some advice on that? And we have one at the moment who is particularly interested in an area that hasn't really been mined much, and it's in the interactive audio area. Okay. So that's new and different. Then you have to educate yourself.
Yeah, well, that's great. Thank you so much for your time, Lorraine. That's been a really interesting conversation.
Well, it's been lovely talking to you. Thanks so much.
This was Talking Through My Hat, a podcast by John Pettigrew, founder of We Are Future Proofs. Please let me know your thoughts by leaving a review at Apple Podcasts or by commenting on the website, myhat.wearefutureproofs.com. You can subscribe to this channel at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Our theme music is from hooksounds.com.